Hello and welcome. I hope you're ready, because today we are diving into a book that might just blow your mind. It's Yuval Noah Harari's Homo Deus, and it's all about, well, what's next for humanity?
So in this explainer, we're going to try to distill the book's absolutely brilliant and honestly pretty provocative opening argument. It all kicks off with a really simple question. For all of human history, what's been our #1 priority? Let's dig in. You see, Harari starts with this simple but really profound observation. For thousands and thousands of years, it didn't matter if you were living in ancient Egypt or medieval China, your biggest worries, the top items on humanity's to-do list, they were always the same 3 things. Any guesses what they were?
Yep, that's the list. Famine, plague, and war. For generation after generation, these were the great, seemingly insurmountable problems that just defined what it meant to be human.
But here's the crucial thing to understand. People didn't see these as problems that could be solved. They were seen as, well, uncontrollable forces of nature, maybe part of God's cosmic plan. You didn't try to end famine, you just prayed that you'd be delivered from it.
And the reality of these problems was just brutal. I mean, listen to this account from a French official back in 1694. He describes people being so desperate that they were eating cats and rotting horse meat just to stay alive. That was the terrifying day-to-day reality of famine.
And then you had plague. The Black Death, which you see here, wasn't understood as, a bacterium carried by fleas. To people at the time, it was a demonic, supernatural force. It wiped out up to a quarter of the entire population of Eurasia, and all people could do was pray. They were completely and utterly helpless. So this is where Harari's argument takes this really dramatic turn. Because in just the last few decades, something completely unprecedented has happened. We've managed to escape. We've actually started to bring these ancient enemies under control. Now check out these numbers. This is where the sheer scale of our victory becomes so clear. In 2010, about 1 million people died from malnutrition. And look, that's a tragedy, of course, but historically speaking, it's a tiny number.
Okay, but now get this. In that very same year, 3 million people died from illnesses related to obesity. Let that sink in for a second. For the first time in history, we live in a world where eating too much is a bigger killer than eating too little. It's just an absolutely stunning reversal.
And this line just perfectly illustrates the point. Harari's punchline is that, here in the 21st century, sugar is a bigger threat to your life than gunpowder. The average person is actually more likely to die from a binge at McDonald's than from a terrorist attack. And it's the same story for violence. This chart from 2012 is just staggering. War killed about 120,000 people. Now compare that to the 800,000 who died from suicide, or the 1.5 million who died from diabetes. You are now far, far more likely to take your own life than to be killed by a soldier.
So here's the really big shift, the key idea. We've fundamentally reframed what these problems even are. When a famine happens today, we don't just throw our hands up and say, well, it's God's will. No way. We say, okay, somebody screwed up. Where did the system fail? We now see them as manageable, technical challenges that we believe we have the power to fix. But this, of course, raises a massive question. If we've pretty much checked off the old to-do list, what replaces it? Now that humankind is kind of like a firefighter in a world without fire, what do we do with ourselves?
Harari suggests that humanity's next targets are going to be even more audacious. We're going to aim for nothing less than immortality, happiness, and even divinity. We'll try to overcome old age and death itself. We'll try to engineer lasting happiness with biochemistry, and we'll try to upgrade ourselves into gods using things like biotechnology and AI. And these aren't just fantasies. He argues these are the new projects already shaping our world.
So let's explore that a little bit. How are we already moving towards these new goals? We'll start with the first, and maybe the most concrete one, the project to solve the problem of death. You see, the modern scientific worldview, it doesn't see death as some metaphysical mystery or the source of life's meaning. It just sees death as another technical problem. Why do we die? Not because a God decreed it, but because of technical glitches, right? The heart stops pumping blood, cancer cells multiply, an artery gets clogged. And for a scientist, every technical problem has a potential technical solution. This contrast really says it all. We've gone from seeing death as this inevitable fate, personified by the Grim Reaper, to seeing life itself as a series of technical problems that we can solve and master, symbolized by technologies like in vitro fertilization. And this is not science fiction. The war on death is already happening. I mean, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights gives us a fundamental right to life, period. It doesn't put an expiry date on it. Tech giants are all in. Google literally founded a company called Calico with the explicit mission to solve death. And you have billionaires like Peter Thiel openly saying their goal isn't to accept death, but to fight it.
So, as we wrap up this peek into Harari's opening argument, we are left with this huge, kind of terrifying question. What if we actually succeed? If we beat the old enemies, and then we go on to conquer death itself and upgrade our own biology, what happens then? What happens to the meaning of our existence? What will it even mean to be human when we have the power of gods? A pretty profound thought to leave you with.